Okay, so again, we want to, in your project panel, you want to go to File, Import, and then choose the file that you want to select. So in my case, I'm going to be working with this movie called Name Logo Movie, and just go ahead and open that. It's going to open right up in your project panel. Now, before that we can see it in the timeline or in the composition panel, we need to make this a composition, okay? And so the easiest way to do this is there's a little composition icon right down below here. It says create a new composition. If you take your video and you drag it down on top of that little button, it will make a new composition of your video, and you'll see it now in the timeline just below, and we also see it in the composition palette right here. Now, we can easily start to preview this. If you just click the space bar, you'll see that two things are happening. One is we're able to see the video play in the composition palette. It may start out a little bit slow because if you notice below, that little green bar that goes across, it's actually rendering the video while we're playing it. So once it renders through once, it will pass through really smoothly and slow and be more true to form. Now let's say, for example, let's say you're working in high definition and it takes a really long time for that initial movie to render. If you want to just do a quick preview of what that looks like, you can change the resolution and preview it much faster. So down below in the compositions palette, you see where it says full. If you click here, you have some options of half, a third, quarter, and these are essentially the resolution. So if we click half, you notice what happens. It is a little bit pixelated now. It's just taking, it sort of reduces that composition down so it's much smaller so that it'll render much faster. Okay? For our purposes, we're probably not working with very large videos, so we can just keep that on full. But at any time, if you're really bogging down and you're not able to view it in real time, just change the resolution down to half or a quarter, so at least you can see what sort of movement is happening. Now, one thing that we'll notice about this is immediately we have in the timeline we have the basic name of our movie. This can be changed at any time just by clicking and adding a new name. We also can see that this is, if we open the project settings, we can see in the timeline it's rendered in terms of the frames, and what we have is frames in seconds. So we have 5 seconds of video, and if you go to composition and composition settings, you can see the basic elements of the video. So we have the width and the height, the basic proportions of the video, whatever you may have there. We have the frame rate, which is 30. And we also have the full resolution and then the timeline, the duration. Now let's say, for example, we wanted to make this a little bit longer. You can easily just go to duration and change this. Let's say from 5 seconds to 9 seconds, for example. Click OK. And now you can see that, if we drag this all the way out at the top here, you can see that now we have 9 seconds. Now the video is only 5 seconds, so you see what happens. It's only this bar is only located, it goes to 5 seconds and then ends. Okay, so if you want to, you could easily have this move and start at a different rate or end at a different rate. So you can just move these things back and forth. So if you have multiple videos, you can easily just align them up by having multiple layers and line them up according to your timeline. Now the other thing, when I play this through, I noticed that at the end it stops, but it's a little bit too quick. I want it to sort of rest on my name a little bit longer. So one thing that I've done is in Cinema 4D, I've rendered out just the last frame of my video where it stops on my name in full resolution. I rendered it out the same resolution as my video, so it's just a frame still. I'll show you what I mean by that. Just delete that first. So if I go up to File, Import, right here I have this is a JPEG. So what I did was in Cinema 4D, I went into my file, I exported the movie, and then I also exported just a still of the very last frame. Okay, and we can work with stills really easily in After Effects. If I take this JPEG still and I just drop it into my composition down here, into the timeline, it's going to create a new layer of that still. So if I click in these little eyeballs over here, show the view. So if I click the eyeball of the movie off, then I can see this is the last frame of my video, and it's just a JPEG still that sort of matches up. Okay, and when you drop in that JPEG, it's going to give you the full duration of your video. All right. So if I click back to the original footage and I play this, you can see that at the end now, when my video ends, that JPEG is the last frame of the video. It's going to stop on that, and now I have an additional 4 seconds of time that my name can be viewed. All right. So this is where I want to add some text to it and give it a little more space. So at any time, you can use stills. You can use things like TIFFs or JPEGs or Photoshop documents along with your moving footage. All right. Now, one thing that I did in my initial video was I had some additional text. Okay. So sometimes you want to have along with your 3D text, you want to have some 2D text that you can play with. So let's stop that. Now, what you can do for this is just simply go up, excuse me, and select the text tool. At the top, we have a whole bunch of tools, just like in Photoshop. We have the selection tool, a move tool, zoom tool. We also have a text tool. And if you click on that, you can go over to your video footage in the compositions palette, and you can just click, and a little cursor will pop up. Now, on the right side, over in characters and presets, you can change the font, you can change the size of it, you can change a lot of the different positions and form of it, just like you would be able to do in Photoshop. And here, I can start to type. Let's call this motion design, and move that around. Now, if I'm outside of the box, just like in Photoshop, if I'm outside of my little text box, I get the movement tool. I can move this around and locate it wherever I want to go. So I'm just going to position this about here. If I move forward in my timeline, I can see that at the end now, I can position this exactly where I want it to be. All right. So let's just put this over right about there. That looks pretty good. Now, the other thing that's really interesting about all of these layers we created is we can use keyframes within them as well. Now, in my original footage, I showed, let's go back to that quickly. You see that the word motion design, it kind of fades up from the bottom. So it passes in, it sort of fades in and moves up. So in order to create that, we just worked with a little bit of a keyframe for that. So let me show you how to work with that form. I've just got to pause here for a second. 8 minutes. We're going to stop.